This is an American spy pigeon. It is equipped with an explosive device inside that is as powerful as a giant bomb. Next to it is a military-grade chip to process incoming information. Below the pigeon is a turbofan engine that can dive at a target if necessary. Above the engine is a fuel storage tank to power it. On the chest of the pigeon is a high-definition camera that it can take very clear pictures even at a great distance. The pigeon's head is equipped with a transmitter that transmits the information it's captured. It's watching a house. The house is home to one of the Soviet Union's top scientists. It's watching every move the scientist makes. It transmits the information it's captured through the satellite dish. The spy satellites in the sky pick up his messages and pass them on to the intelligence office on the ground. The intelligence officer synthesizes the information. Once he analyzes it to the detriment of the U.S., he gives the order to attack. When the pigeon receives the order to attack, it would immediately start its jet engines and swoop down towards the scientist's house. The next day's newspapers carried a message. The scientist had been killed in a fire. One of these pigeons had been captured. When it was disassembled, it looked like this. This is an American spy.
We're not living on the same planet.
Okay.
The greatest practitioners of central planning are corporations. Elon has an operation like General Motors, Ford, IBM, or any of the other megacorps. They have to plan. They buy up companies because they don't want to deal in the market. They don't want the insecurity, the uncertainty of having to buy their inputs or sell their outputs to somebody they don't control. They want the professor to teach the genius of a market. They hate the market. And when they grow to be big, they keep buying whoever they were dealing with before so they could better control them, which requires them then to plan the production and distribution of goods inside rather than buying them in the market.
This is exactly what I said at the beginning of the program. When we deal with racism, rather than dealing with the structural reality and all this nonsense about people are racist because they're frustrated about their life, it's totally classist. What we're saying, only working class people are racist. Do me a favor. Racism was not invented by working class people. It was invented by elite academics through pseudoscientific nonsense and perpetuated as part of political policy from the top down, not the bottom up. In fact, if we look back at the history of this country, when there were slave catchers in the streets, people had far more allies in working class parts of London than they did from rich people who were trying to catch them and send them back to the Caribbean. So let's be honest about the history and deal with the bigger problems of structural racism, because then smaller things and smaller frustrations that are breeding this type of nonsense won't be excavated so much. But this is the problem, is we focus on nonsense like this rather than dealing with why a British soldier you've probably never heard of, a gentleman called Christopher Alder, died in 1999 in police custody. There is footage on YouTube that you can see for yourself of him on the floor with his bottom half exposed, with police officers around him making monkey noises over his dead body. You've never heard his name. Why?
They just made meat from your number 2. Japanese scientists have developed a method to create edible steaks from human feces. Unbelievable? Well, it's happening. Mitsuyuki Aikida, a researcher at the Okayama laboratory, collaborated with Tokyo Sewage to address sewage mud excess. They discovered the content in the mud contains high protein due to bacteria. So, the team isolated and combined these proteins with a reaction enhancer. Result? Synthetic steak. The meat comprises of 63% protein, 25% carbs, 3% lipids, and 9% minerals. And it's visually enhanced with food coloring for a red hue and improved flavor.
And I'm gonna start the year strong with saying that the baking soda and the salt in your water to hydrate yourself, I was right. And Dr. Hazel R. Parso, which is no longer living, would preach about this. And of course she would be deemed crazy, but she is an actual doctor. But she would move in the shadows to get this to the people. And here's a quick story. Here's a video of her preaching.
There is a solution that we make to correct the radiation in our system. And that is to take a quart. Now write this down, because this is a formula. Write this down. 1 quart of distilled water. Now why do we use distilled water? Because it absorbs and pulls out all these elements that are foreign to the physical well-being of our body. In that, you take 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, and stir it till it's thoroughly mixed. divide that into 4 doses. Now, your first dose, then drink the next one every 2 hours until you have taken the 4 doses. And your system will be pretty well cleaned out. Now, when you compare the baths to that and put them together, you'll be surprised at the results that you get. These conditions, and you live with them. You have them every day. They're all there.
You're welcome. And
Sodium, which is a metal soft enough that you can cut with a knife, and it's poisonous and it'll explode if you put it in contact with water. Add chlorine to it, a deadly gas, and you have table salt. Okay? I have oxygen, which promotes combustion. Okay? Promotes combustion. Then I have hydrogen, an explosive gas. Put them together, you make water that puts out fire. Sodium, which is...
According to the Associated Press, Israel's Supreme Court rejects human rights groups' request to declare it unlawful for soldiers to shoot unarmed civilians. Huh? I'll read that again. Wait. So Israel rejects the request by human rights groups declaring it unlawful for soldiers to shoot unarmed civilians. Yo, I'm getting a headache. I gotta read this again. In other words, Israel's saying, we reject your request for our soldiers to stop shooting unarmed civilians. In other words, we're gonna keep shooting unarmed civilians.
I've seen some stupid racist shit before, but you gotta listen to this.
150 years ago, or 200 years ago, when the blacks were slaves, did they ever go to Washington, D.C. and have a rally 200 years ago to protest against slavery? Did they? No. What did they do? Well, a lot of good people in the plantations would say, hey, it's wintertime. Let us help build a church for you, dear folks. And they loved them and taught them how to read so they can read the Bible. And here's what the blacks did about 150 years ago. They humbled themselves. They prayed. They sought God's face and they turned from their wicked ways. And God made slavery illegal through several white presidents, right?
There's no such thing as a pale-skinned prophet. Prophets are meant for those who are oppressed. 70% of the planet is oppressed by the other 30%. Pale-skinned prophet would be an abomination. Okay? There's no such thing as a pale-skinned prophet. The sad thing that black Masons will never be allowed to learn as lackeys for their white Mason counterparts is that they'll never be allowed to become 33rd degree Masons, because if they did, they'd be given a $10,000 pass by the Vatican to go to the House of Omar in Jerusalem and see the perfectly preserved body of Guru Master Prophet Isa, Jesus Christ, and what they would see is a black man. And you think you've seen the Virgin Mary or Jesus Christ or Joseph, the first question out of your mouth is, were they white or black? If they were white, they saw something else. They didn't see that. Okay? So
Shit's getting weird. Part infinity.
In 15 seconds, should voters in their 20s plan on having to work until they're 70?
They should plan on their retirement age being increased, yes. We're going to change it to reflect more of what life expectancy should be.
Excuse me? You want people to work until they die? That's basically what you're saying. You're running for president? You already lost. You ain't reading the room, girl. You already lost. It is over before it even started for you. It's done so. It's done so. Why would anyone want to vote for you? Republican or Democrat? It's over. I don't even want to hear anything else you have to say.
You want to raise? You fucking tripping.
You're getting drafted for World War III.
You must have the wrong house, pal.
Nope. You gotta fight in the war.
And if I don't?
Jail.
Fine.
What? I choose jail.
You'd
rather go to jail than fight for your country?
Yeah.
But why? What has my country ever done for me besides make it impossible to buy a house and refuse to give me any sort of student loan relief or affordable health care? This country's like a deadbeat dad that swears he'll pick me up on the weekends but then ends up spending all of his money on scratch tickets and booze and at the same time refuses to pay child support. Give me a country worth fighting for and then maybe I'll fight in your stupid war, Dad.
It's your duty as an American citizen.
Well, it's also the government's responsibility to protect and represent its citizens, but I don't see much of that happening. Right now, the government looks like hospice care. The Senate chamber reeks of death and mothballs. Grim Reaper's probably forced to sit in at every meeting. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. And I'm telling you, you're not getting a win with me. You want me to fight in a war? I can't even win the war with my own brain. I'm too busy fighting a war with my chronic tummy aches. Give me a Purple Heart for that. If you want devoted soldiers, release a statement saying that Taylor Swift was taken hostage by whatever Middle Eastern country you're trying to bomb. But just remember that your next war on terror is Taylor's version.